My name is Brian O'Leary. I'm a consultant for book, magazine, and association publishers, somewhat in the United States, but also in Canada and in some cases outside of North America. My company is called Magellan Media Consulting, and it's been formed over the last 15 years or so to help publishers plan for what I call cross-platform content workflow, meaning to write once and then share content across multiple platforms, print, online, in ebook formats, and other digital formats as might be needed. Well, the book, A Futurist Manifesto, is important, I think, on three levels. The first is the opportunity to gather voices, authors, the contributors who had not, in many cases, had not been heard before. And we tried to pick examples that were not unique necessarily, but that told a special part of the story. And in some cases, as is evident in the introduction to the translated version of the book, we sometimes pick instances where the authors had described failures or things that they had not succeeded in the way that they had hoped. Because we wanted to show people that this is not simply a linear progression, but a conversation and a voyage. So that was the first reason. The second, I think, is that we wanted to try a different approach to publishing the book. And O'Reilly was willing to do that in releasing the book in 3 different segments. That had not been done very often, but it was critically important to the development of the book because we did the first section, we released it, people could read it, and they did, and it helped us recruit new and different authors for the second and the third sections because people then understood more about the book, and it built enthusiasm and interest.
So the book was actually written on 3 separate sections. The first section, and it was shared, and another author came in for second section.
We had we had a table of contents for the entire book.
Right.
But the table of contents was really fixed only for the first section. So we did 7 chapters in that section. And that was published as a standalone ebook by O'Reilly at a reduced price. And they offered it such that if you bought the book, the first section of the book, at this lower price, you would have the entire book at that price. It would be made available to you when it was finished. So that was a real advantage, and I think it also helped us recruit other authors and make sure that some of the authors that we'd already had on our list were more enthusiastic about actually finishing their work. But I think the third idea, and this is something that Hugh McGuire is really responsible for, the third opportunity in Book of Futurist Manifesto was a real-life opportunity to test Pressbooks, the content creation and management platform, which had been built as an extension, in some ways, of WordPress. And that was a critical part of how we went through the development of the book because it was a very flexible tool. It gave us the ability to maintain links and other metadata that would otherwise have been lost in the publishing process. And it also gave us an opportunity to refine the tool to make it more useful for other publishers. Well, I think any effort to transform publishing takes time, and this is certainly no exception. The most successful examples I've seen, particularly among my clients, are smaller to mid-sized publishers who are they're able to make changes in one or more areas relatively quickly because they're not big organizations. They have alignment of purpose between the people and the mission of the publisher, and they're also generally more budget conscious, so they're not looking for big solutions. Larger publishers, it's harder because many different departments need to get involved and they're slower to change. So I had a client, Loyola Press actually, in Chicago, who about 2.5 years ago I worked with to talk about this agile workflow, to talk about how they could become more effective by maintaining context, by tagging content, and using available tools. At that point, Pressbooks had not yet been created, for commercial use. And so we were looking at some XML solutions and WordPress and others. And they were actually quite effective at doing that. I think, though, that we still have quite a bit of work to do. The publishing market as a whole is really not embracing this workflow idea as quickly as I think they need to compete against many newer and smaller content creation companies.
You mentioned that some of the smaller or medium-sized publishing company was able to make few changes. I think those few areas that they were able to make changes are probably most common or takes least change or change in attitude. I mean, can you tell me which area it is?
Sure. So the areas that most the publishers that are successful in doing this that most often change. The first is that they don't change the technology first. They really think about talking to people and creating an alignment of purpose between what they're trying to achieve organizationally and how people actually work, how they use the tools. So specifically, and I'll go back to this example with Loyola Press, they thought about creating content that could be used more than once. Sometimes it could be used more than once with minimum intervention from moving from print to ebook. Other times they have some educational materials they would want to be able to take components, so educational plans or lessons or tests, and be able to segment those out. Well, that required them to start thinking about how they structured the content, how they tagged it, how they organized it internally. But ultimately, it was all for one purpose, which was to be faster and more cost-effective in bringing this content to market. And so they spent a good deal of time worrying about that. And everybody understood that's why we're doing this. Only after that did they look at the technology and the roles that people played. So purpose, and then technology and people. Well, when people ask me what might be read or what forms of the book might exist in 20 years, I consistently say this, which is there will be all the things we have now and many more. And we'll be selling fewer of any one format, so there will not be the millions upon millions of hardcover formats, but there will still be hardcover, and there will be softcover, and there will be ebooks. But there will also be other things, sometimes shorter form, web-based works of art, perhaps subscriptions, perhaps there'll be flexible tablets of the sort that we have read about but currently do not have. And there'll be other new forms of writing and reading and engagement. Some may involve video, but the market for that is unclear. The good news, though, is that there will be more content available for people to read and consume and purchase. We just don't know exactly how it will look. And so the key thing for publishers who want to remain relevant is to find ways to be flexible upon output, so that when those new things come, they don't have to invent a separate workflow or a new set of technologies. They can use what they have and focus on the consumer, not on the process.
So, like you said in the book, start from readers, the reader-centric, not the product-centric.
Correct. I really do think that the secret for success in publishing, no matter who you are or whether you're a traditional or a new entrant in the market, is to start with the need of the reader. If we do that, then everything else falls out, and we can figure out how to make that work.